Welcome to Weekly Infusion with Dr. Drew Pinsky and Dr. Bruce Heischober. Weekly Infusion addresses medically related topics. It's in the know, entertaining, and everything you want to know about health and medicine. Now may I present to you the very wonderful Dr. Drew and Dr. Bruce.
Hey, welcome to this version of Weekly Infusion, this week's Weekly Infusion.
Yes.
Bruce, here we are.
Good to be here.
And we have a
fascinating guest.
we have a great guest. But everything good? Anything we need to check in on?
Nope, everything's fine.
All right. Let's go right to and welcome our guest. Her name is Mary Roach. She is a best-selling author of several books. She's been called America's funniest science writer. Books include Bonk, The Curious Coupling of Science and Sex. We're going to get into that. And most recently, Grunt, The Curious Science of Humans at War. Oh, my God. Curious. Also, she gave one of the most popular TED Talks of all time, entitled 10 Things You Don't Know About Orgasm. So hopefully we'll
Wonder
get
why that was popular.
all that. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's a privilege. So where shall we start?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start with you. What got you going down this path? Science writing.
Science writing?
Yeah.
What I do?
Yeah.
The weird shit that I do.
Well, not the weird shit, but how you got into science writing, and then how you took the turn the way you do, and the kind of science writing you do.
Well, I was a liberal arts major, and I graduated from school in the middle of a recession without any job skills, basically. So writing is something we all pretty much can do when we get out of college.
Well, where'd you go to school?
Wesleyan University in Connecticut.
Did you have a science background or
No.
Oh,
I didn't
that's
take
crazy.
it. No. Zero. Nothing.
So I went to Amherst back in the days when Wesleyan was beating Amherst in football.
I believe that Wesleyan, when I was there, had the longest held record of zero wins. Just no wins. We were all quite proud of that.
That's why I'm telling you that they used to beat Amherst College in the Little Three. They used to do that. They had a great team
Little
called
Three.
The Little Three. Williams,
Wesleyan, right.
That's like, well, I didn't get into the Ivy League, but I'm in the Little Three. It always seemed kind of sad.
So you
Three.
started writing, and then you've always been a humorous writer, or you just thought you'd take your own path with it?
If you look back to the earliest pieces that I wrote locally here for the Sunday magazine of the San Francisco Examiner Chronicle, they were pretty close in tone. It's just kind of just me, how I see the world and how I write. Obviously, not everything lends itself to humor. But I tended to gravitate toward those topics because it's just more fun for me to write that way. I just have a good time doing it.
Why did it take you so long to get around to sex? You didn't start with that.
I think that I wrote about sex here and there for shorter pieces, but it was book number 3. You mean, why didn't I start with? I should have started with that.
Well,
I thought that book would outsell Stiff.
I love Stiff. I mean, and as a physician, it's just amazing your ability to present. Some of the stuff is just great. I think a medical student should read this book, just to give them some insight into some of the historical perspective on stuff we're doing and transplants and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, they do sometimes. I think anatomy classes sometimes have students read Stiff before they go into the lab.
Sometimes I think I'm going completely on a weird sideways path all of a sudden, but I've thought sometimes about our training as a bit cultish. As physicians,
how's that?
We are indoctrinated. We have a certain way of thinking, a certain way of doing things. We do it to keep our superiors happy, and they're the ones indoctrinating us. It has a little bit of a weird. It's hard to step outside of the thinking from which we are trained.
Right, and we start with cadavers. Interestingly, off our first experience in training.
Yeah, and anytime a school opts to do away with the cadaver dissection and just use, there's all those virtual dissection programs now. There's always a lot of resistance. Like, this is a tradition. This is your first patient. Yeah, which always cracked me up. That's pretty bad if that's your first patient. Hopefully that you won't see any patients coming in that look quite that bad in the future.
Oh no, you'll see many. No matter what, you will. So, but let's talk about the 10 things you don't know about orgasm. Let's start with that. What are the 10 things?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, you may know some of them, but okay. Well, here's a fun one. You were having them, or you could have been having them in the womb. This is something I came across when I was working on Bonk. It was in the Journal of Ultrasound in Medicine, and this doctor in Israel, I think he was in Israel. Anyway, he had these two stills side by side of this fetus with first the hand is kind of poised above the organ, and then it's right there grabbing it. And he didn't. This was it was in a journal, so there wasn't filmed footage. But I'm going to take him at his word.
So he's saying the baby's masturbating? Is that what
yeah, exactly.
Well, you should know that one of the first behaviors that manifests when people come out of their comas, males, is they grab their genitalia. The first thing they do.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a very primitive circuit that gets activated as the neurological systems begin operating.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
See, if I'd known that, I would have thrown that in the book too.
Yeah. See, put that in the next TED Talk.
All right. Well, see, all right. Well, you already knew that then, probably.
I did.
Also,
makes sense.
Here's a fun one. And this, I was interviewing this woman down in Birmingham, Marka Sipsky, who works with a lot of people with spinal cord injury, and we were talking about arousal and orgasm in people with spinal cord injury, various points along the spine. And somehow this came up that she was saying, it's a reflex, the sacral nerve is involved with orgasm. And she was saying if someone was dead, brain dead, but, kept alive on a respirator, you could trigger the reflex. So in other words, you could have orgasms while you're dead. You wouldn't appreciate them in the same way.
No one would have them. You'd be having them, but not having them.
Right, exactly. You'd be having them, but not enjoying them.
That's interesting.
I thought that was interesting. So those are the two that come to mind. I don't know. Yeah, go look up the TED Talk. There's.
All right. Michelle, producer Michelle has one.
I want you to talk about the unattached hiccuper.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was again. This was one of those things I came across. I'm just sitting in the basement of UCSF Medical School Library, going through the entire back issues of the Journal of Sex Research. I think that was the title. Just going through, boring. Suddenly, I find sexual intercourse as a potential treatment for intractable hiccups.
Oh, that makes sense.
That makes sense. You knew this.
No, I didn't know it, but that's an interesting idea. But go ahead.
But so apparently there was this guy and he had hiccups for a long time. He and his wife had sex, and after that he was cured. And in the paper, what I love is that the author of the paper has advice for the unattached hiccuper, which is you could masturbate. This can work for you too. And I just love that there was a whole demographic. Unattached hiccupers.
Unconsummated hiccuper. Yeah. Crazy. When was this from?
That paper, I think Journal of Sex Research.
Like a relatively recent thing, or was it something
Oh, God,
ancient?
no. This was, I'm telling you, I started in the 60s and I went through all the table of contents. So off the top of my head, I don't remember, but pretty far back.
What was
guessing.
that experience like? Just that experience. That must have been wild.
Just going through all this, surprisingly dull. I mean, 99% of what was in there, I didn't bother to Xerox. I'm looking for sexual intercourse as a potential treatment for
hiccups.
But
did you get any sense of the trends over decades of what interests medical researchers around sexuality?
There was. In the 60s, late 50s, 60s, a lot of the really interesting basic stuff that nobody really looked at before because it was so taboo.
Right.
Just basics of arousal.
Right. That's right.
The human sexual response cycle, orgasm. Just that's where the interesting stuff was. Then we moved, sadly, in the 80s into a lot of HIV and AIDS and behavioral stuff and prevention and all of that. So
and now I bet it's all
swamps it.
I bet it's all now psychiatric and abuse, those sorts of things.
Sorry?
I bet now it's all psychiatric and abuse. Trauma history. It's like
yes,
medications.
And a lot of searching for the pink pill. In other words, we have Viagra. And now, what can we give to women? A lot of pharmaceutically motivated testing of various.
I was trying to remember if in Stiff you had anything on necrophilia, trying to chat cross the channel between sex and Stiff.
I have a footnote about necrophilia, and that is it. I didn't go too deep into necrophilia, although some people told me some disturbing things, like if you go to Las Vegas, there are undertakers there who can set you up with what you want. I'm like,
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I don't even want to know that.
Drop
I don't
in
know
for
if
a
it's
cold
true.
one.
Didn't look into it. But the footnote was fun because what I looked at was the phrasing of the statutes that prohibit necrophilia to go state by state. Some states are just very coy and prudish, like nothing untoward shall be done with a dead person. And others are like, no anal sex, no oral sex, no. I mean, they list everything. You know, I think it was actually Nevada that probably because maybe there's been a problem. Maybe. But anyway, for a long time there wasn't any reason to put it on the books because nobody knew it was happening, and then slowly but surely it began happening, or people began to realize that it was happening, and then it found its way into the law.
Well,
but it was interesting, just the different states and how they chose to write it up.
Well, Michelle's unwilling to speak this, but
No, I just
sacral
said,
stimulators
you can bring
and
that sacral
cadavers.
stimulator to Las Vegas with you, so that when you get set up with the appropriate cadaver,
Oh, my God.
then it can also
yeah.
it can have the orgasm too.
Oh, geez.
It wouldn't be for naught. It would be equally.
So, do you
Was
write
it good
about?
for you? Was it good for you? Oh, that's right. You can't answer. Sorry, but it seemed like it was.
I'm just thinking of a whole new chapter of Walking Dead. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
That's all I'm
no.
saying. That's all I'm saying. So sacral stimulators, these things that they slide up into the spinal column, and people can have orgasms with the push of a button, quite literally.
Well, and it started. These things were for pain relief, right? Wasn't
Yep.
it?
Yep.
There was something that was implanted in somewhere in the spinal cord for pain relief,
Yep.
and the story I heard, and I don't know if it's true, is that this woman who was a beta subject, I guess, she goes, "Wow, you're going to have to teach that to my husband."
That's actually on video. That's
It is.
actually
Is it?
that the woman saying that, but and it was well into the treatment modality, but it was a side effect that they noticed, and that's when they started putting them in intentionally. I haven't seen that in recent years. They were
No.
doing it 10 years ago
So were they putting them in
for sexual dysfunction,
for
right?
sexual?
Yes,
Really?
yes, they
Yes.
were. Yes, not a
you're
lot.
kidding.
but
I never followed it past the off-label discovery.
No, I went down to. I did a television piece, a little docu-piece. Went down to South Carolina or something and talked to a guy that was doing this.
Yeah.
And wasn't doing a lot of it, but
I've seen that. I when things don't take off like that, I would assume insurance isn't paying for it.
insurance paying for it, or look, and you have hardware in your spine that can't go well in the long run, right?
Probably not a good idea.
Right. Yeah.
Probably better to just try a different position.
Thank you, thank you. Maybe a new partner even.
Yeah,
Just
a little
saying.
marijuana. I don't know.
Hey,
There's got
that's
to
a
be
good
a
idea.
better way.
Oh, you need to do a pot book. That'd be interesting. Are you doing that?
A what?
A pot book.
Marijuana.
Yeah, pot. There's so many pot books right now.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
As you could imagine, there's a glut of pot books. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would like a reliable source, somebody we can really turn to and say, okay, this is well thought out, well researched.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll think about that.
Even maybe just an article on CBD or something, because there's just so much apocryphal BS out there, and yet there are legitimate utility, and we need to sort that all out. So.
Yeah, I'm going to let somebody else do that.
Okay. What are you looking up there, Bruce?
I have so many earmarked book pages from Mary Roach that it's confusing where to start. But
let me ask something. Did you go to medium school?
I did.
What was that
I
like?
basically flunked out of medium school.
You not
the Arthur
intuitive?
Findlay College in England.
Oh my God.
It's an old spiritualist college. It's this big old building, and they have a course. It's like a weekend course in mediumship, and I really was at the bottom of my class.
I have two psychic friends who went there.
Really?
Really?
Colby and and Cindy.
Wow.
I put this in for Susan's entertainment. That's why I put that question. But
Yeah,
I like how I was reading that chapter again this weekend, and I like how you said that you had the partner, and it said, look at each other and encompass, and you said he did not look like he wanted to be encompassed.
No, he didn't. No, it was at one point somebody said to me, this was some exercise we were doing in auras, and this person said to me, I can see your aura, and it's gray. It's like, I'm a gray aura, thank you very much. I didn't even know that they made them in gray. It's so depressing. Yeah. Well, anyway, yes, I didn't.
Was
whatever
did
I
you,
was supposed to be learning, I wasn't.
is there anything, could you make anything of all that? You know what I mean?
Well,
Did you have a way of interpreting what they were doing or what they thought they were doing as opposed to what they were probably doing?
Well, it wasn't so much at me. Yeah, there's a lot of, when you get a hit, like, it was interesting. Somebody would say, I'm getting a kitchen with light coming through the window, And the other person goes, yes, my kitchen doesn't get much light, but we're thinking of having more windows put in. So it's always that, like, that line. There's this one line. It's not my line, someone else, which is the client makes the psychic.
Right.
But so some people, I have not to say, who knows? Who knows? There may be people who are wired in some special way that they're getting some signals the rest of us aren't getting. I don't know.
Right.
But there's an awful lot of the other side of it, which is people wanting to believe and that coloring their interpretation of things that are said that are not accurate or very, very general. That's nothing new. Everybody knows that. I have a friend sadly lost a child some years back, was going to a medium who was saying, giving him this information. And he said to us, and this medium is amazing. She knew that my son was very mature for his age. He was 5 when he died, and she's saying he's 13. And instead of going, whoa, she's way off, he interpreted it as, this is an entity that's wise beyond its years.
No.
I know, which is very sad.
Yes. Oh, my God. Well, my feeling is if it helps him, so be it. Like, who am I to say?
Yeah, except that his daughter got very upset because she said, I feel like these memories you're being told are replacing my own real memories of my brother, which was interesting.
That is
But in general, I agree. If it's comforting.
So, Bruce, go to your dog ears.
Okay, some of my dog ears, beer and taste, and Sue Langstaff, was it? And talking about, of course, I have the most obnoxious friends in terms of IPA.
Yes, I don't like IPAs. I kind of do. But
I tell my friends it stands for I'm pretty annoying. and then her comment about would she choose IPA or Budweiser, and she goes, I'd get Bud. And then talking about taste as personal preference and discernment is so subjective, ephemeral, shaped by trends and fads.
Well, go ahead. Tell us about that, Mary.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, the IPA thing was interesting because she said, and it's funny now because IPA is so popular that here where I live in Oakland, which is sort of hipster central and a lot of artisanal cheeses and olives and beers and everything is very cutting edge artisanal, and you have to have a big beard to do it unless you're a woman. But if you go and order IPA, you are just looked down upon because it's too popular now. So now you have to get some beer they've let something overwrought, and it's actually they're embracing the off flavors that would be on like the off flavor wheel, like I don't know, painty cardboardy. I don't know what the flavors are, but anyway, it's just keeps heading further out. The cool people keep running away from the rest of us.
And I guess the sort of experience wouldn't be liking it so much, would it? Is that really liking?
Well, it's developing a taste. So in your book.
There's neophobia, which is just a tendency to, when you taste something new, to be wary, which makes evolutionary sense.
Yes.
It's like if it smells weird, if it tastes weird, it probably is,
be wary.
Back in the day, a good idea to avoid it.
Yes.
So you have to overcome that. And but there was that study that in that chapter, I think it was, somebody, this was during the war when I think it was World War II, stuff was rationed anyway, for whatever reason, they were serving powdered milk and people hated it. And then they came back after like 13 presentations of the powdered milk and they said, "Do you like it?" They're like, "Yeah, I kind of like it." Right. It was like you eat what you like, not vice versa.
Right. And then going beyond beer to olive oil, talking and Langstaff's defects wheel for olive oil, using leaving olive oil in contact with rotting sediment at the bottom of a tank. Baby diapers, manure, vomit, bad salami.
Wait, hold on. What is this? The wheel?
It's this amazing. It's this wheel of if you smell this, well, it's in your mouth. You're smelling it in your mouth. It's flavor. Yeah. So if this is what you're experiencing, you can look on this wheel and it will tell you. It's basically like forensic smelling. It will tell you what did you do wrong in your production process of this olive oil that is creating this smell. Oh. That one is particularly evocative. What does it say? Is it like baby diapers, vomit,
bad salami, sewer dregs, pig farm, waste pond?
Yeah, you don't want that in your olive oil.
Pig
definitely.
Farm waste pond. Well, I don't know quite that would taste like or smell like, but
I know. That's the thing with these flavor wheels. Like, how do you know what that's
right?
Like?
Just a hint.
Yeah.
Just a hint.
Yeah.
Because and then you wrote, because it's hard for people to gauge quality by flavor. They tend to gauge it by price, and I think that's with wine the classic story.
Well, I think the classic story is vodka, isn't it? Because
my God,
they've gone over and over and tasted that, and it's all the same. Right? Is that right?
I read one place that you can start out with 198 proof alcohol and then start adding water to it. But you read about 7 times distilled. It seems like there's a little bit of folklore involved in quality of vodka.
Mary?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about vodka, but the wine stuff. But there's two sides to the wine. First, there is the fact that. What most people, you can't tell people what good and bad taste is. If if you're in the industry, you start to understand these flavors and they're essentially smells. You start to be able to, almost like learning a language. Like you start to parse. It's just red wine anymore. It's blackberry, cherry, old cigar, tobacco, chocolate. But by studying the individual chemicals that create those individual smells, you can actually break it down. Kind of like listening to music. If you don't know music, you just hear the overall music. Right. Oh, that's nice music. Right. But if you understand music, then you can pick out, there's the oboe and there's the repeating motif and this. Right. And so people whether it's olive oil or beer or wine, start to have a very sophisticated understanding of what their nose is telling their brain, and they then become just more engaged and more interested in all of the flavors, and so they're bored by just your basic kind of big mellow Merlot or whatever, the stuff that I would be fine with is kind of boring and overly sweet. There's generally a progression away from sweet, because sweet is everybody likes sweet.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of the most compelling things I've read recently that you wrote. The chopping the heads off and reanimation.
Boy, that was an abrupt shift.
Of what?
I know. Well, I was going to go to Fletcher. You want to talk about Fletcherism and the Fletcherism fad? Because I love when there are crazy fads that catch on. But what
was this?
Well,
Fletcher. Yeah, Fletcher was an extreme chewer. I mean, we're talking up to 700 chews for a mouthful of shallot. That was one example.
Right.
He was, the backstory is that Fletcher was an efficiency buff. Everything, he was like if you look, and I went to his archives, his letters are written with no margins, single-spaced, back-to-back. I'm not going to waste any paper here ever. It was maddening for me. But you could just see that's part of his personality. He felt like you could, if you chewed thoroughly, you could extract more benefit from the food. He believed this to the point where he was advising the president or something.
Right.
Yeah, about post-war. There was a lot of poor nutrition and people
Herbert
needed
Hoover's
food in
World
Europe.
War I Commission for Relief.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at that book. But yes, so he was advocating teaching everybody Fletcherism, in other words, extreme thorough chewing, in order to get more for their food. Therefore, you don't need to feed them as much. So, he would have all these economic projections of how much the average family could save per year if they would only chew their food and extract the maximum benefit from it. They wouldn't need to eat that much.
Here's from your book. After bragging in a 1910 letter that a family of 5 could save enough money to furnish a 5-room flat in 15 months by Fletcherizing, he added, of course, the furnishings must be the simplest sort.
Yeah, meanwhile, he's living at the Waldorf Astoria. I love that detail.
But I wonder what trend or fad today could probably match that.
Juicing, same thing, really? Juicing?
Yes. Huh?
Yeah.
So we have to take a break, and then we'll come right back and talk more.
All right, we'll take a little break and be right back with more with Mary Roach. Hydrolite, of course, you've heard me rave about these guys. It's a product that I actually wanted to develop myself. I conceived of this. I knew it was needed. It was already in Australia, and now it is here. It works. The feedback is unanimous. Even though it's great to use, though, when you're sick or dehydrated, you can use it every day, especially now that the weather is changing. It's hot. So whether you're exercising or maybe you got seasonal allergies or you drank too much or you got vomiting or diarrhea, whatever it might be, you can reduce fatigue and keep feeling healthy as well. Once you've started feeling dehydrated, sometimes a little too late. So you want to stay hydrated. And rapid rehydration, if you do get dehydrated, requires a proper balance of sodium, glucose, and water, and nothing provides it like Hydrolite. I'm telling you, it's the same as an IV fluid via your mouth, via your enteral system. It's based on established, proven science, quite simply the best rehydration product out there. It comes in great flavors. They have those fizzy tablets. Also, they have a powder and a premixed drink. Compared to other sports drinks, Hydrolite delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. Hydrolite solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-follow directions. All right, you can find Hydrolite at Rite Aid or online at Amazon or click through at drdrew.com. And for a limited time, our listeners save 30% on Hydrolite if you use the code DRDREW, Dr. Drew, HY at checkout. That is DRDREWHY. 30% off. Great deal. Do it. And we are back. Mary Roach is our guest. Mary, is there a website you want people to go to?
Sure, they could go to maryroach.net.
Fantastic. Grunt is the latest book. Humans at War. That one fascinates and concerns me. What jumped out at you of what you learned from that?
How does it apply to North Korea?
Well, I was kind of going there,
yeah.
but go ahead.
Well, it's it's really not. You hear military science as a term, and you think of bullets and weapons, and it's not about that side of military science. It's kind of the other side. So it's all about, because this is the military's got a lot of money. So there's a lot of esoteric labs, like the Naval Medical Submarine Research Lab and the Military Entomology Department at Walter Reed. A lot of kind of bizarre fields that I had never heard of, and that always attracts me as a writer. So it's a book about all the day-to-day horribleness that enlisted people deal with, like extreme heat and bugs and sleep deprivation and being scared shitless and heavy loads, that kind of thing. And so in a way, what I wanted to do was address things that everybody who's not in the military deals with on a much smaller scale. That is, heat and bugs and diarrhea and heavy loads and back pain, that kind of thing. So while it's about the military, it sticks to things that most of us have experienced, although not in such an extreme way.
Did you learn something from the writing of that book that surprised you?
Oh yeah, everything in the book is a surprise. I mean, I was reporting on. I remember I was at Walter Reed with a surgeon who was repairing somebody's urethra, which was interesting because they were using the inside of the cheek to, fold that up and use it as a patch, and because the inside of the cheek, it's used to being wet. Makes sense. But while I'm there, the surgeon says, I said, so what else is new in the realm of reconstructing genitals, and he said, "Well, over at Johns Hopkins, they're doing some cadaver work for a penis transplant." And this was, of course, before the first one happened. Mm-hmm. So I got to actually see a transplant done on 2 cadavers. Well, wow. from one to the other, which was a surprise. It was fascinating. And so, it was all interesting to me. I've never really thought about. I spent time on a submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, and that makes me curious about North Korea's ballistic missile submarine arsenal. The whole idea with putting a third of the nuclear arsenal on submarines is you don't know where they are. They're down and they stay down. And I know that North Korea has those. And you never read about that in the news.
No,
it's all about if they launched it from here, we could make it to Alaska. Right. We could make it to. It's like, well, what about the ones on the submarines?
I didn't realize they had them on submarines.
There was a photograph of. They did a launch not that long ago. There was a photograph of it. It didn't. And the caption said it didn't go very far.
But still,
we can take a little solace in that.
Yeah, but maybe they could get close enough that it didn't have to go so far.
Exactly, yeah. I'm kind of curious about that. That I don't see any coverage of that.
What are you planning to write about in the future? What stuff's got your attention?
I don't know. I've tried on and shrugged off a bunch of subjects. It gets harder to find the Mary Roachable things.
Like what? Give me an example of what you tried on that didn't work.
I was interested in natural disasters and how do you rescuing people from rubble and the complications with that. That I got interested in because I heard in Grunt. It was that crush. I came across that crush syndrome where you finally free somebody, you remove the block that's on them, whatever, and
myoglobin everything poisons into their body.
Yes, right. All of these, because basically there's been dying muscle.
Yeah.
All of this stuff just swamps into the bloodstream and overwhelms the kidneys, and you die.
Yeah.
Right after you've been rescued. Horrible, sad. Anyway, but I guess that got me kind of interested in how you deal with the aftermath of a disaster. But the logistics of getting there, I could get myself there with the Air Force, but I couldn't really get in with any teams. Are you still there? Are you having any trouble with the sound?
No. We're good.
Okay, you're good. All right.
I know we used to deal with that a lot in my day, and in addition to the renal failure from acute tubular necrosis from the myoglobin, phosphate metabolism. Phosphorus was always a mess. Mm-hmm. It caused real havoc.
Yeah, it's just like, people spending hours trying to extract these people. They get them out, the crowd cheers, and then they die. Really,
you would think they would start IV fluids right there to sort of get the system geared up for the myoglobin, no?
Yeah, maybe they do. There's also
mannitol or something.
While they're still in there.
Yeah. Maybe they do. See, I could answer that question if I'd done it. But it was logistically impossible because depending on what part of the world, you don't know what teams are going in. So it's hard to kind of embed yourself with a team to get it set up beforehand.
Tell me about the slang test.
The what?
Military slang test.
Slaying?
Slang.
Oh, they said slaying. Slang. Oh yeah. Well, we did a fun little video for that book, where I went out on the streets and asked people what they thought these words were, these slang terms. So I can test you on some of them.
Please do.
All right,
you're
going to get them all.
No, I don't think so.
The people on the streets of New York were not getting them. Okay, I'll give you a pretty easy one first. Snot locker.
Snot locker.
Kleenex? I don't know. Snot locker. What the hell?
Stuffed up nose.
Nose. It's your nose.
Okay, snot locker. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Chest candy.
Sputum.
Yeah. Sputum? No?
Sputum.
No? Yes? That's what we think it is.
That's such a terrible guess.
Listen, what I learned from your book is that phlegm floats and pus sinks. Right? Wasn't that your book?
Chest candy.
Well, in one of my books, I talked about floaters, fecal floaters and sinkers.
Oh.
Phlegm floats. That sounds like me.
Yes.
pus. Yeah, probably. I do. One thing I shared in one of my books is that the French for pus is le pus.
Le pus. Not la pus, but le pus.
Le pus, yeah. Let's not bother trans. We don't need our own word for that. We're good with pus. Okay, chest candy. No, it's not phlegm, sputum.
Yeah.
What would be candy-like about that?
Well...
chest candy is metals, stripes and bars on a general hierarchy.
Okay, we're thinking medically. We're thinking medically.
I know, that's hilarious.
I was on rounds junior year, and a flustered friend of mine, she was describing coughing up phlegm, and she accidentally said that my patient coughed up a bright red stool. so that's why I just
phlegm, in my opinion, is the worst. It's the worst human secretion. It has the most disgusting variations. Pulling it out of people, and odors
people don't realize
the odor will either knock you over or stay with you for 2 weeks.
Pseudomonas.
I've some odors literally I could not get it out of my nose for a week.
I went to Hilltop Labs once for a story. Hilltop Labs is where they study the efficacy of like smell fighters, deodorants, cat litter, antiperspirant, mouthwash. And I said to the guy, Jack Wild, the guy who founded it, what is the most disgusting smell you've ever smelled? And he said, without even waiting, not even thinking about it, incubated spit.
Incubated spit.
Incubated, maybe there. I'm thinking there must have been some phlegm in there, but they let it sit, warm.
Oh,
incubated spit. I wonder if that's what happens with aspiration pneumonia.
Yeah,
is that effectively what it is.
Cough that up.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's when I wrote Gulp. People assumed that the grossest stuff was below the waist.
No,
it was the saliva, sputum. That mucusy, smelly green. Yeah.
How about dietary topics? Do you get into those very often?
No. Wait, where was we were gonna? Oh, I didn't finish your quiz.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
You're trying to because you're not doing very well.
We're not. Nor are we going. Nor are we going to. Clearly.
I'll give you one more. Okay, and then we can go to dietary whatever. Okay, ready? Mm-hmm. Rectal cranial inversion.
Inversion. Put your head up your head up your ass.
Yes,
there
head
you
up
go.
your ass. Rectal cranial inversion. Yep. And then this one you won't get. Pencil. The alternate is a media puke.
Media puke.
Journalist.
Oh, interesting.
Media puke, or if they're feeling charitable, a pencil.
Those are good. I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, so dietary.
No, I don't know. Nutrition. No, nutrition is too
complicated,
big
frankly.
and complicated and too full of like myths and misinformation. And I don't want to set people straight because I don't have the background to do it. I just know that half of them are wrong.
Yeah, we talked to Kate Shanahan. Remember, Bruce? Mm-hmm. She's the sort of fat. One of her areas is fat, and she was saying she's a biochemist by training. She's like, look, nutrition is way too complex to say anything meaningful. But there's certain little, tiny, narrow things she could talk about that were important and relevant. Yeah. Such as the fact that we now have canola oil or some vegetable oil instead of the animal fat oil at McDonald's, and it's a carcinogen, and the animal fat was no problem.
Wow.
Yeah. Remember
wow.
That? Yeah. Yeah, heating up the vegetable oil turns it into a carcinogen.
Whoa, really? Yeah. I thought McDonald's went back to tallow.
Oh, did they? Maybe because of that.
Because people didn't like the way they taste.
Well, the tallow is better.
We're going to go back to tallow.
Tallow is way better for us. Way better.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, remember when people were eating. When I was a kid, my mom would get margarine in tubs because it was supposed to be healthier.
Yep,
it turned out not to be.
That's right.
How about pet foods? Your pet food discussion was fascinating too.
That was really interesting. There was a guy. It was a taste chapter because it was interesting. Cats. There's something pyro something or other. I forget. It's like cat crack. Your cat loves this taste.
Pyrophosphates.
Yeah, they had some in a bottle there at this company, and I tried a little of it, and we don't have the receptors. We don't. It doesn't. It's like it tastes
can't
just like
taste
kind of
it, but
water with a
cats-
little bit of a funniness to it.
Right, and
But
so
cats love it.
cats naturally 100% 100% carnivore, and
True,
yet
true
you're putting
carnivore.
together a completely vegetarian product and then coat it with the pyrophosphate, and the cats will eat it, right?
Oh yeah. People are it's so funny the way the pet food companies have to appeal to the owner. The cat's
Yeah.
not doing the shopping.
Right.
The cat's not going around with a shopping cart and going, "Oh, that looks good." So it's got to appeal to the owner. And I love this. There are smells dogs love, as we all know. Like dogs love vomit, shit. They're crazy for that. But
Yes.
if you make the person who's opening the can doesn't want to smell vomit or shit, so they have to have this balance. It's got to be not too disgusting for the owner and yet appealing to the animal. So it's a really bizarre industry.
As our friend Adam Carolla said, he goes, if the dog's sense of smell is literally 10,000 times more powerful than the human,
Right.
really they're putting their nose right up the ass, first thing. 10,000 times more powerful.
I
But-
know.
So
Yeah.
Cats-
It's. I also love this fact. Kibble. They often give it a color. They put
Yeah.
there'll be this one is green, so it's the vegetable. Yeah, right. So they said they'll never use red because for any pet food, dog or cat, because if that comes up again, if the cat barfs,
Oh, yeah.
it'll stain the rug, and then the customer will be pissed off, and they'll have to pay for the rug.
Or they'll run to the vet thinking that he vomited blood. Yeah.
Yeah, or a blood. What is it? A red feces? What is that?
Yeah. Right.
A red stool.
Well, good time.
The one that was coughed up. So cats can't taste sugar, but rats are slaves to sweetness, as you say, which is
They will apparently keep pressing the bar
Yeah.
to
die
get.
of malnutrition rather than step away from sugar
Well,
water.
speaking of malnutrition, what happens to the vegan cats?
Yeah.
Well, they sort of put vitamins. They put a vitamin spray all over. I mean, the kibble has got a lot of added vitamins, so it doesn't really matter. They've got the taste coating on the outside, and then they've got a lot of vitamins, and it's depending on what your marketing strategy is.
But is that why there's a study showing that in the United States, cats are decimating the natural bird and rodent populations in certain areas? Is that why they go out and bring you back little gifts of dead animals?
No, that's just
That's just
because
cats.
that's fun. That's
Okay.
just
Yeah.
their
Cats
hobby.
are always hunting. Always, always, always. That's their thing.
And they're good. They're
Yeah.
good at it too. Yeah.
That is their deal. Well, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, Mary.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is fascinating.
Sorry.
I
We
could
could go on and
I know
on.
we could. I'm wondering why I want to come up with her. Do you have some more, Bruce, than your dog ear there?
Oh, I got tons
Just
of
say
them.
what was I going to say about something about pet food? And now it's of course just completely flown from my head. So whatever you were going to ask.
Go ahead, Bruce. What do you think?
The whole Beaumont story and the guy that got his stomach ripped open by a gunshot, and then was it Dr. Beaumont kept his
Yes, William
kept the hole
Beaumont.
open
Yeah,
in
and
his
studied
stomach.
it.
and
That's how we
studied-
learned. That's how we learned about acid, right?
Right.
Stomach acid.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Y'all, everybody learns that in medical school, right? The
Not-
story
not-
of
not Bruce,
Alexis
evidently.
St. Martin.
I don't remember
Yeah.
what I learned in medical
Everybody
school.
but you.
Yeah, Drew knows more. Drew's forgotten more than I know, even now.
No, my thing was I was so traumatized in medical school that everything was etched in. That's what I've realized. I was in a state
but-
of constant trauma.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, anyway, that guy, it was he had a hole. He was shot the abdomen, and so there's this hole into the stomach. And William Beaumont realized I can peer into this hole with a flashlight, candle, whatever back then, and I can see what's going on. I can watch digestion. So, but what he ended up, he would take bits and pieces of like meat and vegetable and bread and put it in a little silk mesh bag, lower it into the stomach, leave it there, pull it back out, lo and behold, everything's liquefied and it's gone. And so he does literally hundreds of experiments, different things, and then he starts trying to, he starts pumping out the acid and doing it outside the body. And so poor
Wow.
Alexis St. Martin is just sort of like a stomach acid production machine.
Oh,
But the other side of it, because I was just interested in their relationship.
yeah.
Because they was through the whole Alexis St. Martin's whole lifetime, he was doing this on and off. He would take off. He was kind of a drunk, and he had a lot of kids and no money, and he'd come back and he needed money, and then he'd disappear, and Beaumont would be really pissed. And Beaumont was trying to get recognition as a physician. He wanted to take him on the road in Europe and like do talks and lectures, and he had to offer more money. Alexis St. Martin was pretty shrewd. He's like, no, I want twice that, and you got to bring my family too. And Beaumont's like, damn you, Alexis St. Martin. But they had an interesting game of cat and mouse, and they were fairly dependent on each other.
But he outlived Beaumont. Beaumont died before him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's what I remember. The guy with the hole in his stomach.
And Alexis St. Martin, when he died, people had to kind of hide the body because, for historical reasons, they wanted, to like put the famous stomach in the museum of whatever.
They were chasing him.
And
yeah, they wanted that stomach.
What the other thing? Guthrie, the guy that put the head of a dog on another dog, and it stayed alive for up to 3 days, and that was in the late '60s, I believe. And just that whole story.
Vladimir Demikov did a ton of that stuff.
Yeah.
Taking a brain of one dog, hooking it up so it has a blood supply inside the abdomen of another dog, and it's staying alive. Can you imagine, like, what that experience is for that brain?
Well, the ethical considerations, and with science advancing so quickly, just they had dog's head put on another dog and monkey.
Oh,
and
like
these
they were even like the front half of one dog, like the lungs, the front legs, and the head stuck on the back end of another dog. And there's photographs of these bizarre kind of monstrosities. But what I think it was Alexis Carroll too was also there was a string of them. But what they got very good at is, it's a word that I can never pronounce when you hook up two veins.
Anastomosis, yeah.
Right. Like that. They kind of got. I mean, that was an important, for, the early day. But you got to know how to do that if you're going to transplant.
Right.
Kid.
Well, not just transplant. If you're gonna do a bypass surgery or anything else, I mean, anastomosing arteries and veins.
But they're saying
they
instead
did some good stuff. But
instead of thinking of it as a head transplant, look at it as a person getting a multiple organ transplant.
Yeah, it's a body transplant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how far?
Makes sense. I mean, rather than on a certain level, obviously you can't reattach the spinal cord, but if you could, and you could just hook up the blood supply, and you could get the nerves to regrow. I mean, there's no really. Why not just if you multiple organ failure and you got this body that's useless, but your mind is fine, just plop it on another body, right?
Who gets the rejection and who gets graft versus host,
right?
Right?
Oh, yeah. I guess right. Would the does it go by which has the most acreage? Like, would the head? Would the body reject the head?
Right, or the head reject the body, or one, or both get both, or probably both. Of everything, it'd probably be all graft versus host everywhere. So craziness.
Yeah, we could.
Bruce,
there's
one
that
more.
dude in Italy who claims he's all set to do it.
I know.
Crucifixion Experiments. Should we?
Oh my God, Mary,
holy cadaver!
How dare
Pierre
you?
Barbet.
What happened?
Well, Pierre, this was early 1900s, and Pierre was interested in the Shroud of Turin and had this idea that. Because he was looking at the marks on there, with the wrists, and wanted to, verify or debunk them, which one way or the other, I'm not sure. I think he was looking to verify them, I'm guessing. And so he built a crucifix in his lab in Paris, and I don't know where he got the bodies. I don't know who these people were, but he was hanging arms with weights, and he was trying to see, do the marks are the marks on the shroud realistic, and do they reflect what actually happens when you have weight on a nail through a palm or a wrist?
And what did he find?
I can't remember. I think that what Pierre Barbet, I think he was a pro Shroud of Turin. I think he was looking to say, see, science supports the Shroud of Turin.
Or oui.
Oh, yes.
Voyez.
I mean, like SEE. But yes, oui.
All right, you guys, we've got to wrap this thing up.
We could go on.
Michelle, you want something? Did you want to ask something too?
Yeah, I was just, because I've read all the books, and sometimes I laugh out loud thinking about certain passages, and one of them I was just thinking about was when the researcher who was videotaping sexual intercourse, and she said, well, Mary, if you find volunteers, I will do some more. And then you went to your husband and you go, honey, remember how you said you haven't been to Europe in 20 years?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's going to get her husband to go to Europe under the ruse of being videotaped. Having
my
sex,
God.
but like it's
What did he say? When,
but in
the record.
ultrasound, 4-dimensional ultrasound, which when you think that seemed a lot less embarrassing, but when you think about it, ultrasound, the guy's got to be right. There was a guy, Dr. Deng. He's got to hold the wand, right? So, like Ed had to be behind me, and Dr. Deng is holding the wand to my abdomen.
Did you do it?
What?
Did you guys do it?
We did.
Wow.
good
And
for
the
you.
funniest under the guise of a European vacation.
Listen,
Exactly.
I would have fallen for that. And you have to have sex. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
I love
I
it.
pitched it as like, I said you hadn't been to London in 25 years. I'm like, we should go. We'll stay in a nice hotel. We'll go see some shows in the West End. Jeremy Irons is in something right now. He's got a beard. I saw him. It's going to be really good. And we have to have sex in front of the guy in a lab coat.
Oh, by the way, yeah.
Oh, by the way, and of course, for me, it was like I'm taking notes the whole time. I mean, the burden of performance is on Ed, of course, and he doesn't get to write it up and have a fun chapter. He just,
Wait! If I were Ed, there would be a fun chapter written about. Trust me.
yeah, I know.
Shows.
Whenever Ed would go to one of the talks for that book, I would make him stand up and take a bow.
I was going to say that's your next TED Talk for sure.
Wow.
So, all right. Well, Mary Roach, thank you so much.
Yes.
Which book should I read first? Give me some advice.
Oh gosh, read whatever. Bonk is a lot of fun.
All right.
Stiff and Golfer.
Stiff is probably the one most people know. Packing for Mars is good fun.
Ooh,
also,
Packing for Mars. I don't know about that one. Tell me about that one, real quick.
Oh, that's all. It's astronauts. It's all the physical and psychological weirdness of trying to live in an environment for which we didn't evolve. So it's just space weird stuff, fun stuff.
You haven't done any on religions? You want to get yourself in trouble?
Oh, there you go.
Well, Spook kind of stepped a little bit into the spiritual area. I was like, and I find that people who have strong spiritual beliefs don't have a sense of humor about that area. They're a little touchy.
Yeah.
So,
how about evolution? Maybe do something on evolution.
I would love to be the writer in residence at the Vatican and write, because what a weird anachronism that's fascinating to me. But of course, I won't.
You wouldn't last long there.
No,
you'd have a crucifixion story.
Yes, I would. Yeah, it's hard to take notes when you're nailed to a cross.
There go all our Christian listeners. Oh well.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Well, listen, thank you, Mary. Really, it's been a privilege and a pleasure, and I enjoyed talking to you.
I bet people are always offering to take you out for a drink or dinner just to talk to you.
No,
I think that's an invitation.
They need to do that more. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
And everybody, we'll see you next time.
All right.
Remember, you can find all these podcasts at drdrew.com. The Dr. Drew podcast, the This Life podcast with Dr. Drew and Bob Forrest, and the Adam and Drew podcast, which is available 5 days a week. Find them all on iTunes and rate us 5 stars. Subscribe and get it first. And if you're really happy, click on the Amazon banner at drdrew.com to help support the show. We'll thank you for it. If you join the email list via drdrew.com/contact, we'll send you a weekly infusion newsletter with Dr. Drew's news. We're so grateful when you get in touch. We read all your emails and we'll bring you the subject matter you want to hear about.